to discuss UNRWA's extremely difficult situation today, but we have also talked about hope and future, and we should aim at ensuring that war and devastation stop immediately. So when we gather here again in 2026, we can welcome peace and stability for everyone in the region. So I conclude with a very clear message. UNRWA must come out reinforced from today's meeting. There is no alternative, no other alternative. The suffering of millions of Palestinians are a reason clear for UNRWA to continue going on. They depend on UNRWA's operational capabilities on the ground. So let's sustain its brave efforts to continue serving the needs and protecting Palestinian refugees in these extremely adverse circumstances.
Thank you very much. Mr. Safadi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Philippe. And let me start by thanking our co-sponsors in today's ministerial meeting for supporting UNRWA, Spain and Brazil. And I'm also grateful for the over 40 countries who showed up to express their unwavering support to the agency and the noble mission that it performs. Look, long before the genocide in Gaza started, long before Israel destroyed Gaza's schools, long before Israel buried the children of Gaza under the rubble of their homes, long before Israel closed the schools to over 600,000 kids, UNRWA was there, bringing hope, offering education, offering support. The work of UNRWA is reflected in the hundreds of thousands of Palestinian boys and girls who were able to finish their schools, to get jobs, to get education, and to move on with their lives despite the oppression of occupation. And UNRWA has to stay there. Now Gaza is flattened. Israel has turned Gaza into a wasteland. Hundreds of thousands of children are traumatized. Tens of thousands of kids have lost their families. Gaza is basically a land of waste where 2.3 million people are living in displacement. We all know the world now has come a long distance from the early days of the aggression. More and more countries are realizing that this atrocity cannot continue, that this massacre has to stop, that the Palestinian people have to have a life, that Palestinian children have to go to school, that mothers do not have to watch their children waste away before their eyes because they cannot give them baby formula. As Israel not only continues with its vicious aggression in Gaza, but continues with preventing them from getting aid, not allowing food, not allowing bread, not allowing water to go into Gaza. The war will have to end, and when it ends, we need UNRWA. Because UNRWA knows Gaza better than anybody else. Because UNRWA has been there for the people of Gaza through the years of siege, long before the war. Because UNRWA knows how to rebuild the schools, how to rebuild the clinics, how to connect to the people who trust UNRWA. And that is why we have to save UNRWA. UNRWA has been targeted long before October 7th. It has been targeted since. And it has made the ultimate sacrifice. It paid in blood. Over 340 UNRWA workers have been killed in this massacre. And yet, UNRWA persists. It perseveres. UNRWA staff who bury their kin leave and try to give help to others in need in Gaza. That's why we must save UNRWA. That's why we say UNRWA is indispensable. Its role is irreplaceable. We need to support UNRWA. If we care about Palestinian children, if we care about our human values, if we are committed to the Charter of the United Nations, if we care about humanity, our humanity, we have to support UNRWA because nobody will be able to help Palestinians like UNRWA will be able to. UNRWA now is facing tremendous challenges. On the ground, its staff is being hunted. It has no money to continue its operations. And that is why we're here to call on all member states of the United Nations to translate their political support for UNRWA, expressed so articulately in the renewal of its mandate, to translate that support into action, by ensuring that UNRWA has the resources it needs to help Gazans once this war ends and once the reality of Gaza is out there for all of us to see. Nobody has been allowed, in terms of journalists, to go to Gaza and see what is going on there. But once journalists are allowed to go into Gaza, once they see how much destruction there is, once they see how many children have nobody to go to, once they realize the impact of 600,000 Palestinian kids not going to school for 2 years in a row, they'll realize how much we need UNRWA. So it is imperative that we all come together, support UNRWA politically, salute it, celebrate it for the sacrifices it's making, and also fund it so that it can restore life to Gaza. It can restore hope to the people of Gaza. UNRWA was born out of the agony of the Palestinian people. It has to stay until their misery ends by the fulfillment of their legitimate right, indispensable right, inalienable right to freedom, statehood, dignity, and life, simple life. Palestinian children simply need to live, simply need not to worry about being killed when they go to school, if there's a school for them to go to. That's why we must support UNRWA. That's why we must stand by UNRWA. And that's why we continue to organize those conferences alongside UNGA to urge all our partners to support UNRWA, to fund it, to make sure that it has the resources to be able to do its job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. But Mr. Lazzarini is going to speak and he'll take your questions.
Can we very, very quickly?
And now I think it's on all of us to come together and make sure that we generate the will and the plan that can work to solve the misery in Gaza.
There? Looks good for the Palestinians?
I cannot speak for the Palestinians, but we're still working with that. The President was very committed to end the war. We're committed to working with him to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to end the war. We're all our partners in this endeavor, and we're going to try and do our best. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister.
And I'm going to keep you company here on this.
That's very
But you see, you still have one person who will talk and take your questions, and that is the Commissioner General of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini. Mr. Lazzarini.
Thank you so much. And in fact, I won't talk very long because I had two eminent colleagues who spoke about the conference, spoke about UNRWA, spoke about the situation, of course, in the OPT. Maybe just to say we had this ministerial meeting now co-chaired by Brazil, Jordan, and Spain. The main objective, of course, was to continue to garner the necessary support to the agency mandate, to safeguard it, but also it was a meeting where we had to draw the attention about the precarious financial situation of the agency. But let me, I know that we have said almost everything about Gaza, that most of the time we are out of word, but I think it's always important, day after day after day, to remind ourselves about the horror unfolding there, just to make sure that we do not start to feel, jaded or indifferent. What's going on in Gaza is absolutely unbearable. We had a week ago, last week, the Commission of Inquiry, which came to its conclusion describing it as a genocide. It added, in fact, its conclusion to many other, I would say, scholars or NGOs, including Israeli NGOs, who basically concluded to the same. And it is true that Gaza today, people are experiencing hell in all its possible facets. It's quite common now today to hear in Gaza that people just dream to be able to properly die rather than to go through this suffering. It says a lot. I think during this week there have been also a few events where we were reminded about the fate of the children, the war on the children, the number of children, the highest number in the world of amputees, amputation taking place without sterilization, the fact that on a daily basis you have the equivalent of a full classroom of children dying, one every hour, 25, 28 on a daily basis. So I think it's very important to keep, expressing total outrage on what's going on. And of course, what part of our frustration is that this outrage has not yet been translated into meaningful action, putting an end to the atrocity that we are recording on a daily basis. We were talking also about the agency. I think we discussed many times in this room about the price ultimately my colleagues have paid on the ground. Today we talk about more than 370 colleagues who have been killed. There might be even more because of the major military offensive taking place right now in Gaza. We do not have all the information on real time. You know also the extent of the attack the agency has been under politically in terms of disinformation campaign, but also the bills which have been adopted by the Knesset, constraining, in fact, the ability of the agency to properly operate, mainly in Gaza. Having said that, we are still operational in Gaza. We still have 12,000 staff. They are still on a daily basis and against all odds providing health services, doing nutritional screening for the children, ensuring access to clean water, managing shelter, providing, whenever it is possible, some psychosocial support to the children. So while the agency is constrained when it comes to delivering life-saving assistance or food to the population, all the other services are continuing, of course, bearing in mind the context in which our colleagues are evolving. I also regularly remind this absurd or obscene reality where, on one hand, we have a fabricated famine, a man-made famine in Gaza, and we have tons of goods waiting outside of Gaza. Only UNRWA as an agency, we have available the equivalent of 3 months of food covering the need of the population. And collectively, we have shown during the last ceasefire that when there is a will, when obstacles are lifted, collectively we succeeded to reverse the tide and answer to the growing hunger in Gaza. 1 or 2 words about our financial situation. My call to the member states is to bridge the situation between now and the end of the first quarter next year. Why the first quarter next year? Because traditionally we used to receive in January the US contribution and funding, which allowed the agency to start the year with a deficit, but now this won't be possible, and the need for new money, in fact, is right now $200 million. We have succeeded to muddle through until now, until the end of September. We have also put in place a drastic cost control and austerity measure within the organization, but it doesn't mean that we will succeed to continue to muddle through. So without significant new money, the agency will be obliged to take, I would say, additional drastic measure. Maybe last but not least, my plea to the member states today. Of course, we all know we needed yesterday a ceasefire. We needed yesterday the release of the hostages. We needed yesterday a scaling up of the humanitarian assistance to reverse what's unfolding under our watch. But we also need now that we restore the humanitarian response as it was at the time of the ceasefire. It's grotesque that it has been replaced by a system for which the main objective is to support, in fact, military and political objective. Here I refer to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And last but not least, a strong call to the member state to safeguard the mandate of the agency. You know that last week the New York Declaration was endorsed. It featured quite predominantly the role of UNRWA, and I think it is important that if ultimately we want to get rid of the agency, it's important that we genuinely and truly invest in peace, because the only alternative to an agency like ours are functioning, empowered, capacitated future Palestinian institution within a two-state solution. So I think I would stop here, but just to add some element of the conference today.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now turn for questions. First, Abdul Hamid.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner General. Abdul Hamid Siyama from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I have two questions. First, Israel demanded that every humanitarian agency in Gaza to register with the Israeli military, and they're giving them a deadline until the end of the year. I think they have to expose their staff, they have to expose their budget, what they're doing. And can you shed some light on this plan? I think it's to undermine all humanitarian work in Gaza. And second, my question, which has some political dimension, don't you see that this war on the humanitarian agencies, first and foremost is UNRWA, is part of the all-over war on the Palestinian people, to uproot them, to destroy them, to obliterate them from the face of earth? And by doing these things, destroying the humanitarian agents, they make their war easier for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I do not have all the details of what's being requested to the NGOs, but I'm aware of a number of demands. But maybe a general comment about this. What we have observed is that the basic humanitarian principles, which are the foundation on how humanitarian organizations normally function, are being questioned in the context of Gaza. Whether we talk about independence, impartiality, neutrality, I would even say the principle of humanity, are being questioned by some of the models which are being proposed. If we talk about the Gaza Humanitarian Forum, we went from hundreds of distribution points to 4 located in the south, nearby military position, forcing, in fact, people to move from where they are. This is not the kind of impartial, independent type of humanitarian assistance based on the notion of humanity being provided to the most vulnerable one. And I do believe with all this constraint, or even we keep hearing, that if this organization partner with UNRWA or partner with this type of operator, they will be prevented to operate in UNRWA. So all this condition, of course, infringe on this basic principle. The problem is that if we accept this to take place in the context of Gaza, it can easily be applied anywhere else and becomes the new norm. On your second question, I have been quite vocal also on this, on what the true meaning of the attacks against the agency, aiming at stripping the Palestinian from the refugee status. But I also believe that part of the attack we have seen on the education system are also attacks on the identity and history of the Palestinian.
Yes, please.
Tom Bateman with BBC News. Thank you. Firstly, I wanted to ask about the closure of the Allenby Bridge and the impact that you expect to see both in Gaza and the West Bank if that continues. And my second question is about recognition of Palestinian statehood by the UK in particular. There is a very detailed submission by a group of Palestinians, 400 pages of evidence that's been put into the UK government seeking reparations and an apology from the UK over its role in Mandate Palestine. So this is a historical thing, but seen as very, very important by Palestinians connected to UK recognition of a Palestinian state. And I wanted to ask you, given UNRWA's historical mandate in supporting 1948 refugees, if you think this kind of attempt to seek reparation and an apology is important.
I'm not sure I will be able to answer the second question because I'm still unaware, so I don't know what the submission is all about. But maybe just a general comment from my stay also in the region. I believe that if communities have not gone through a healing process or through a recognition of the injustice they have been confronted with, it will remain, for a long time, a silent, open wound, which, you know, at a different time might be expressed differently. I have seen it, for example, in the way the war in Lebanon has been addressed. There was a total amnesty, but people have kept silently all the wound, and this has never really been completely healed. So, general answer would be, obviously, we always have to look at, that this injustice be recognized. What the way, I don't know yet. On the question regarding NMB, I think it all depends. First, of course, NMB is a main crossing for the Palestinian of the West Bank with the outside world. NMB is a passage to go to Jordan, but also to go to the airport. It's also the crossing for the supply line crossing from Jordan, not only to the West Bank, but also currently to the response in Gaza. The real question is, will there be alternative or not of NMB? If there is no alternative, one would expect indeed quite a number of impacts, starting with the restriction of movement of the Palestinian population in the West Bank. But again, here we have to look at how long will it be and are they alternative or not.
Mike?
Thank you, Foreign Commissioner General Mike Wagon at My24 News. Thanks for doing the briefing. Two questions for you. I think it was a recent Arab League meeting or OIC meeting about a precipitous drop in Arab state funding for UNRWA, and I think it's down to 3% of the budget this year. To what do you attribute that drop, considering that the Arab states repeatedly proclaim that the Palestinian cause is so near and dear to their hearts? The second question I have is, I wanted to get your opinion on this push for Palestinian recognition of statehood that's obviously been going on this week and in the past few months. On one hand, you know, it seems intuitive it would support UNRWA, but on the other hand, recognition of statehood generally means recognition of borders, means recognition of a functioning state institutions that can support its own people, thereby not necessitating a need for UNRWA anymore. So I'm trying to get your opinion on whether it's fruitful for UNRWA to have these countries come out in support of Palestinian statehood with really nothing behind it, it seems, considering UNRWA is still so needed.
Thank you. You referred to, on the first question, you referred to my statement at the Arab League a week ago, where indeed when I addressed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I told them that it is very important to express solidarity and political support to the Palestinian refugees, but I would like also to see this political support to be translated into increased resource for the Palestinian refugees through an agency like UNRWA. And you are right, there have been a sharp decrease compared to 2024 to 2025. And as I would say at the end of August, because it was at the beginning of September, the total contribution of the Arab country amounted 3% of the overall income of the agency at that time of the year. But I also told them that I hope that this does not reflect your positioning and support to the agency, and that between now and the end of the year, I will see at least similar support than what we used to see before.
Is there an understanding of why it dropped?
There is a combination of factors. I think one of the first reason is the time of the year. They traditionally come more at the end of the year. Secondly, there is still a perception that the agency is constrained when it comes to Gaza. As I mentioned before, we have for 3 months of stock available to cover all the need of the population. Part of the funding is normally also, allocated to purchase life-saving material. So there is a combination of factors of this nature. But I think the discussion will become more relevant. Here it was more a warning. Let's not end the year that way. The discussion will become much more relevant at the end of the year once we have really the figures. So I'm still optimistic. We just reached an agreement, a biannual agreement with the state of Qatar. I will be going to Riyadh on Monday, also to continue, in fact, to discuss about the contribution we used to get and we should also get. So I would say it was more a warning. Let's make sure that we do not end the year on that way. On your second question, first, as the SG said this week, the recognition is a right for the Palestinians. So it was, and we had 10 countries adding their voices to already 140 member states who have recognized the state of Palestine a long time ago. Now, having said that, I believe it can make a difference if through the recognition there is a genuine commitment to make the resolve of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict again a priority. Let's be honest, before October 23, that was far from being a priority of the international community. There have been so many different geopolitical developments across the world and in the region that basically it was even difficult to draw the attention about the importance to remain involved. So this recognition, I think, can make a difference if that means a genuine commitment, and we will see. There have been a momentum this week also through the adoption of the New York Declaration. There are quite a number of ongoing discussion about what future plan would be the day a ceasefire is being reached. We have to start with a ceasefire, there is absolutely no doubt. But there is a path and there is a common understanding among member states of what the path should be if we do not want to lose definitely the notion of a two-state solution.
To the question from BBC, one of our UNRWA colleagues has written in to say that that Dallenby Bridge, they've announced that it will reopen tomorrow. So that's the announcement from Israel. Since Merv from Bloomberg has to go, we'll call on her first and then go to Murad. Merv?
I saw something red.
Yeah, the light's on.
Hello. Mesa Mustafa from Middle East Eye. Can you shed some light on Israel's attacks of UNRWA in the West Bank, its efforts of removing its operations in camps like Jenin and Tulkarem, and what you think the long-term goal is for Israel there?
First, we had the two bills which have been adopted by the Knesset. As you know, one is to prevent any presence and activity of UNRWA in the sovereign state of Israel, and Israel consider occupied East Jerusalem as being part of it. So we had a direct impact on our presence and even schools in East Jerusalem. The second bill is the one which constrain and prevent any official contact between Israeli officials and UNRWA officials. And this has led to the withdrawal of our international staff because we do not have any administrative or bureaucratic relation. Your question now is more about what's going on in Jenin Tulkarem. We had the longest lasting military operation, which has triggered the biggest displacement of population since 1967, and it has primarily impacted the refugee camp, where people are not authorized to go to the camp, which means it constrains also the agency to operate directly from these camps. So when it comes to the West Bank in general, all our activities are ongoing except for the time being in these affected camps of Jenin Tulkarem. I think there is one other camp which is also impacted the same way.
Okay. So first we'll call Murad, and then I believe Merv is online from Anadolu. So please come on there. So Murad first, and then Merv, you're next.
Thank you, Murad from Al Jazeera Arabic. Now with the renewal of the UNRWA mandate is approaching, do you think the agency will receive the needed support from the General Assembly members despite all of this pressure?
Is your question on political support or on resource? Yes.
Renewal of the mandate.
I have no doubt that the mandate will be renewed. If you look at the vote last week regarding the New York Declaration, 142 or 144 member states have voted in favor, and this New York Declaration also features quite predominantly the role of UNRWA, and as we heard from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Jordan, basically it mentioned even its indispensable role. So I have no doubt that the renewal will take place. My problem is always the renewal is important. We are asked as an agency to provide public-like services to one of the most destitute communities across the region, being the Palestinian refugees. We do not have any fiscal tools, and we depend only on voluntary contribution. So I believe it is very important that the renewal is not just rubber stamp, but the renewal is also accompanied by matching resources to allow the agency to implement in a predictable way its mandate.
Anadolu? Hold on. We need the audio. 1 second. Can we get the audio from Anadolu? Try now. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Please try and write your question, and I'll try to ask it of the speaker. We'll now turn to our next colleague, Lucia from Al Jazeera.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. But listening to you all this time, outlining very much in detail the atrocities that are taking place in Gaza, the children, the women, all the suffering, and not just of Palestinians, but of staff, hundreds of people from the United Nations and from your agency in particular who have been killed and who may continue to be killed there. I can't help but wonder, what would you say to President Netanyahu, who just arrived in New York recently? He is, and Israel still is, a member of the United Nations. Are you planning to meet with him or with members of his delegation? They have, after all, they have a long-term strategy of trying to delegitimize the work of UNRWA. So what is it that you would say to him?
As you know, there is no contact between government official and the agencies, so unfortunately what you describe won't happen. But there is a short message: put an end to this hell. We need to put an end. When we talk about a deliberate or man-made famine, that means it can be addressed through a political decision. Now, the political decision is right now in his hand, or in the hand of anyone who can influence this decision. But that's number one. We need to put an end to these atrocities. We need to put an end to this war. We need a ceasefire. We need the release of the hostages, but put an end. I remain convinced that, Gaza can end through a decision. It's not as complicated as it is when you are dealing with a famine in Sudan or in Somalia. You do not have all the element in your hand. But when it is as fabricated as it is in Gaza, only a political will, political decision can end this madness.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Lazzarini, Shudaju with China Central Television. I don't know, it's my feeling or someone else has the same feeling. After the implementation of the 2 Knesset bills, we heard less and less news about UNRWA, especially UNRWA itself as an institution. Do you feel less political pressure after that from Israeli government, or no news is good news, or is that we just didn't hear those bad news?
I would agree with you, but it is also true that last year UNRWA was at that time the only agency being, labeled as being fully infiltrated by Hamas, was stated as an agency which has to cease its activities in Gaza, eventually to be dismantled. But today we are not alone anymore. There have been other UN agencies, other NGOs, journalists, once they were killed, were also labeled, and even countries recognizing the state of Palestine are, accused of rewarding. So I think because we are not the only one anymore, maybe you hear less about this, and I would agree with you that while there are still, important pressure and attack on the agency, but it's diluted because it's not only against the agency anymore.
Yes.
This is Mohammed Ramawi from Pass Blue. So when you look at the opposition to UNRWA, it's basically Israel and the United States. And it seems like the U.S. is doing it as a result of pressure from Israel, that the U.S. just backs Israel no matter what. Why do you think the U.S. is backing Israel unconditionally, especially when it comes to opposition to UNRWA?
I think it's a question to be asked in Washington, D.C. I don't have an answer on this. I mean, I still believe that UNRWA has an important role to play, and you heard it from both ministers before, that if tomorrow we have a ceasefire, we are an invaluable asset for the Palestinian, for the international community. I do believe that one of the top priority collectively, among many other priorities, is to bring back the 100,000 girls and boys deeply traumatized, living in the rubble, and UNRWA has the expertise and the workforce to make it happen. And if we don't do this, we're just sowing seeds for more extremist violence in the future. So I believe that the day we talk about reconstruction in Gaza, that the agency and partner will realize how an important asset it is for the Palestinian and the Palestinian refugees.
Stefano.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini. Stefano Vaccara, Ital Press, La Voce di New York. I had, like my colleagues, some feeling, but just happened. It means that I was counting to come here to listen to you and other minister here, and instead was announced just a little bit before your press conference that they were going to talk about Gaza, about the situation, with the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia there at the stakeout at the Security Council. So most of the journalists had to be, they decide, like me, to go there. So my feeling is, because they could have done half an hour later, half an hour after, before, that decision, could it be that UNRWA, and you represent UNRWA, in the process that they're deciding future of Gaza, future of the Palestinian, or the Palestinian state, UNRWA is not count anymore?
First, I think you are in New York during the high-level week, and there are tons of meetings every day competing. Many of us sometimes just wonder in which meeting we are entering because there are as many. So I don't believe, I mean, this is purely, what you describe is purely coincidental. No, it's the contrary. UNRWA, for example, has played an important role and featured within all the discussion related to the global alliance for the two-state solution, which ultimately provided after that the input for the New York Declaration. So I would say today there is certainly a better momentum for political support and to safeguard the mandate of the agency than 1 year ago, when member states were a little bit taken back by the aggressive campaign and allegation the agency was under.
Thank you for your press conference, Mr. Lazzarini. My name is Yu from Kyoto News, Japanese news agency. So I have follow-up question